time acceleration. I don't know how much all of you are familiar with the principle of time acceleration. A lot of talk nowadays about 2012, the Mayan calendar, different prophecies. But the one thing that's consistent in all those prophetic visions, there's always been this thing about this time that we're in now, the Aquarian age. This is a time of expansion. This is a time of shifting from the inner self-centered journey that has occupied our culture for the past 100 years or so, especially the past few decades. Moving into this realm now that, borrowing from Carolyn Mace, she calls the spiritual mind. Eckhart calls it a new earth. Of course, miracles would call it heaven, heaven on earth. That we're here, our function is to bring heaven to earth, to be the expression of that. And we shared a little bit earlier some of our stories about how that happens again and again. It's not a one-time thing. We continually have opportunities to share the truth of who we are. And the work to make that possible is to remove the obstacles, remove the barriers. And this is what a lot of spiritual practices are about, helping us to identify, feel how it feels to not be the full expression of who we are. And remove those barriers, recognizing that they're self-imposed. Might have seemed in less conscious times that it was being inflicted or imposed upon us, but we agree, we chose, we've always been choosing. So collectively, we're able to choose something today that individually not very many people could have chosen. Some did, and we've known about the great masters. But this time we're in now isn't the time any longer for the avatar. It's the time for the collective awakening of our true nature, our Christ self, whatever words we use to describe it. And collectively, we can fully appreciate something, embrace something that individually would have seemed way too arrogant, or, our ego would love that idea, and mine certainly did in my journey of embracing the idea. It was slightly misinterpreted, that I am the Christ. And though that's a true spiritual expression, it's not I, Louis, it's I share with you, the I am that we all are. And we did that exercise earlier, looking into one other individual's eyes, and you get the I am that we are. And again, it's a lot for our brain to reinterpret the word I, because we've identified I for so long with me. And Eckhart talks about that, the little me. But it is the I am that we're transcending. We're not defeating ego, we're transcending it. And again, using Carolyn Mace's terminology, something I put on the board here, it's just this simple thing that helps us understand that this movement that is happening in our evolution, moving from the tribal mind, which until very recently dominated our world, and still dominates pockets of the world where there's less light, less movement of energy. And we know from our experience that the tribal mind is what creates governments, what creates nations, what creates this sense of safety, supposedly, in form. And it was all about our own experience that we can now claim as individuals, that we came out of the tribal mind, we came out of our clan, and we shared a lot earlier about how painful that might have been and how lucky we were that maybe our clan didn't work. How lucky are we that the greater tribal mind, say called America, isn't working. I mean, it's a beautiful, if you just look at the story of America, it's a beautiful expression of all these individuals from different parts of the world that had a bigger idea that we can be free. We can rise above the tyranny of the old tribal mind that still dominates some third world cultures. So we came here with this beautiful idea that we could become free. And it was fully expressed here. It was a beautiful thing. And we got to witness the tail end of that. The freedom that was fully expressed in the 1960s, 70s, and beyond, with this full expression of the egoic or self-centered mind. The idea that says, I deserve to be free. I deserve to be happy. I deserve to have what I want. And we watched that. We're all old enough to have lived through at least a part of that. And we've gotten to see how, okay, that was a process that we're evolving through and beyond, and that process is ending. And it looks right now to many people like this is not a good thing. Okay, like Eckhart says, the American culture is the caterpillar that is now collapsing. It's becoming dysfunctional, so that the full flowering of the butterfly, which was always the American spirit, that's why we left these other countries, left the tyranny, the oppression, that wouldn't allow us to be free, and to be humanly free as individual men and women, regardless of race or gender or whatever orientation we might choose. There's a bigger freedom that goes beyond the individual self. And that's what we're starting to awaken to, individually and collectively. And it's a really exciting thing that more and more places like Hawaii are serving that function of human beings coming together in this idea of synergy, something beyond what I could ever accomplish on my own. And all of us will reach a place in our lives where we recognize, I can't go any further alone. I need the support. I need the guidance. I need greater amounts of that. Because it's no longer about individual achievement. That's boring. Again, as a culture, we've done that. We've seen the expressions of that. And it's beautiful in this little story that I wrote called The Third Pulse. It's on my website, thirdpulse.com. I wrote this story about the last 100 years of our evolution, and seeing how certain aspects of this transformation were played out, and choosing Adolf Hitler as sort of the poster child of the tribal mind. Just one representation of this mind that would believe so strongly in the safety that would come out of, in this case, sort of like ethnic purity. That and again, this is just a slight twist of a very profound spiritual truth, that came out of Madame Blavatsky and all the theosophical stuff that had to do with this pure race, this pure being that we are. And it's easy to mistake it as in form of certain peoples versus the true self that's arising in all of us. So just less than 100 years ago, a group of people who had a lot of motivation because they were struggling a lot as a clan, as a tribe, as a country, were seized by the charisma of an individual who had a lot of motivation to want to shine. But beyond his own personal motivation, we can see, if we have eyes to see, that Spirit was simply using him as a catalyst for change. That what would arise in Nazi Germany, what would arise out of the concentration camps, out of World War II, was an amazing shift in the consciousness of our world. Now, it doesn't mean that we're not still doing some warlike tribal mind behaviors. It still happens, but we became weary of it. No war since the World War II has ever really captured the support of the globe. I mean, for a short while after 9/11, the world went back to that tribal mind, kind of, we have to fight the evil empire. But it lasted maybe a couple of years and people got over it. They maybe still have some bumper stickers on their car. But remember, for a while, everybody got crazy. There's this enemy, we have to defeat this enemy. And the world became as one, and all the countries that hated America for a while, maybe 6 months, they loved America again. Because look what happened to America. It was so painful. So we saw a little blip on the screen. That was what happened back in Germany on a big scale all across Europe. But it was beautiful that it was what would bring about the end of the tribal mind. And we saw the tribal mind really come in our culture to a pretty screeching halt in the 1960s, where all of the systems started collapsing. The Catholic Church collapsed, the whole structure, the social structure of our country collapsed as far as the rights of blacks and women suddenly just bursting onto the scene. Everything that happened during that decade was phenomenal. It was all about this sense of the old doesn't work anymore.